1 Corinthians chapter 10. We're going to be in this is one of Paul's letters, as you probably know, one of his letters to the churches. This is the passage I was drawn to, 1 Corinthians 10. And title of this message is this: they wanted deliverance, but they didn't want God. They wanted deliverance, but they didn't want God. That's a sobering statement, a sad statement. We're going to see that here in this passage, and I want to apply it for us as well to make sure that as we are pursuing the things of God, we actually pursue God himself. As we're pursuing the things that God does in our lives, we don't stop there, because I don't want you to miss the point of your deliverance. I don't want you to miss the point of what God does in your life. When God does something in our lives, it's actually an invitation to know him more. When God brings freedom, when God brings healing, when God brings a breakthrough in our lives, it's not just so that we can have that moment or have that freedom. It's meant to lead somewhere. It's meant to lead us to him. It's meant to lead us to a greater walk with him and to a place of holiness and fulfilling our purpose. And so 1 Corinthians 10, the Apostle Paul gives a summary of the story of the children of Israel being brought out of Egypt. And it's a sad account as it continues here. And so he says this, 1 Corinthians 10 verse 1, "Moreover, brethren, I do not want you to be unaware that all our fathers were under the cloud, all passed through the sea, all were baptized into Moses in the cloud and in the sea." So he's talking about the Exodus story, when they were leaving Egypt, right? So Israel had been enslaved to Egypt. Think about this, over 400 years. That is a long time. I mean, think about how long that is, over 400 years, right? I mean, we're celebrating 250 years as a nation, right? So this is 400 plus years they were enslaved to Egypt. And he's talking about this story. So the cloud of God's glory was there. He said they passed through the sea. That's when they went through the Red Sea. They crossed through as they were being delivered from Egypt. So that's what he's referring to. Verse 3, all ate the same spiritual food. That was the manna that came down from heaven. All drank the same spiritual drink. They drank of that spiritual rock that followed them, and that rock was Christ, the water that came from the rock. Verse 5, though, it says this, "But with most of them, God was not well pleased, for their bodies were scattered in the wilderness. Now these things became our examples, to the intent that we should not lust after evil things, as they also lusted. Do not become idolaters, as some of them, as it is written, the people sat down to eat and drink and rose up to play. Nor let us commit sexual immorality, as some of them did, and in one day 23,000 fell. Nor let us tempt Christ," or it means put him to the test, "as some of them also tempted and were destroyed by serpents. Nor complain, as some of them also complained and were destroyed by the destroyer. Now all these things happened to them as examples, and they were written for our admonition, upon whom the ends of the ages have come." If I could summarize this passage, it's a sobering passage. If I could summarize this passage, I would say it like this: the children of Israel wanted deliverance, but they didn't want holiness. They wanted freedom, but they didn't want consecration to God. They wanted liberty from oppression, but they didn't want to follow God's ways. They wanted what God could do for them, but they didn't want God himself. You see, because when God delivered them out of Egypt, that wasn't supposed to be an end, it was supposed to be a beginning. It wasn't supposed to be just the end of a story. It was supposed to be the beginning of a covenant, that they were coming into a covenant relationship with God. He said, "I will be your God, you will be my people." And I don't want you to live like the rest of the nations around you that do all these idolatrous practices, and they do witchcraft and soothsaying and divination, and they do sexual immorality, and they worship idols. And he says, no, that's the nations of the world do that, but not for you. You're my special people. I've called you to be my special people. I want to have a relationship with you. I want to walk among you. I want to be in your midst. Think about that. God himself, the God of the universe, the maker of heaven and earth, called a people to himself. And in order for them to be his people, the first step was they needed deliverance. They needed that freedom, but that wasn't supposed to be the end. It was supposed to be the beginning. Even when Moses went to Pharaoh, when God, he comes in the burning bush and he sends Moses, and then Aaron comes along and they go to Pharaoh. And remember, he says, let my people go that they may serve me in the wilderness, that they may worship me. So the end result wasn't just deliverance, it was worship of God. The end result wasn't just that they would be free from Egypt, but that they would be God's own special people. But when you read this passage, 1 Corinthians 10, 1 through 11, that we just read, when you read through that, you see that most of them missed the point. And they fell short of God's design and God's intention for what he was doing and why he brought them out of Egypt.